You are listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast. Cult Talk Net, in association with Cult of Lore, proudly bring to you a special Howling Mad Culttober presentation. Werewolves!
Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolf bane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolf bane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolf bane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
Motherfuckers, it's Halloween!
Awoo.
All right. Well, this is going to be our final episode for the October season, which is our favorite time of year.
As you must know by now, we've been celebrating Culttober.
Yep.
In October.
And this is the wrap-up of Culttober for Cult of Lore.
Yes. So, we're going to be doing something a little different. Oh, by the way, I'm Eric.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Jerry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, usually, of course, we would be covering Warhammer lore.
Yep. But we did that last. That was our last episode, Event Horizon. That's that.
Yep. We're going to be doing something a little different today. We're going to be looking at the lore in our own world surrounding werewolves.
Werewolves.
Yes.
Now, Eric, this is kind of something. This is an episode that you pitched, kind of on the really early onset of the conception.
Yes, back when Cult of Lore was nothing but a twinkle in our eyes.
And in a twinge in our torsos. Groins. Dick.
So, back when we were still like forming what this show was going to be, that was an episode that I brought up that I really wanted to do because I love werewolves.
He does.
I do. My whole life, wolves and werewolves, I've loved it, despite the lack of a lot of good werewolf fiction.
Especially in the realm of cinema.
Yes.
It's kind of tough going sometimes.
Yeah. So,
but we got some good examples. We got some good ones.
We do, because it's not all bad. Otherwise, why would we love werewolves? And maybe along the way, we'll kind of find out why werewolves have survived throughout time, because there's a lot of time that werewolves have spent in the human psyche, and we'll get into that.
Pretty much forever.
For as far back as we can tell.
So far back, in fact, that we actually busted out the sacred timeline.
Yes.
Again.
We haven't seen that since
Imperium.
No,
we did it for Eldar as well.
Oh, we did. That's right.
Yep.
Yes,
anytime we're doing a large timeline, we bust out our sacred timeline, which, as I say every time, is better than Disney's because unlike Loki's, ours doesn't fuck anything up. It just serves to complement. Fuck you, mouse. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled program.
Yes, and of course, our next release, we will be going back to Warhammer's subject matter.
We will.
Yeah.
And we'll be returning with the Imperial Army. The Astra Militarum will be our next episode.
Yes.
Not Krieg, Jerry.
Not Krieg.
Not Krieg.
Yeah.
And the reason for that change is we actually got somebody that reached out to us on Facebook who had a quote that he wanted us to do.
Yeah.
And so when we were deciding what episode to do, it actually kind of came down between the Astral Militarum and the Krieg.
Yep.
We chose Krieg, but this guy wanted us to do a quote that we thought would fit really good with the Astral Militarum. It is a Caiaphas Cain quote.
Yep.
So, Aaron on Facebook, thank you for that. And we will be doing that next, I promise.
Yeah. So, as always, just kind of go to the point. We love hearing from you guys, and we'll
absolutely use it. And
absolutely.
And we'll try to squeeze it as long as we're not completely dead set on what we're doing. We'll try to make it ASAP.
Absolutely. I mean, we're doing this for you guys. So,
yep. So we honor those requests. And we love the quotes, so it's really cool of him. For Aaron, we're not going to drop his last name, but thank you for reaching out. We love doing the quotes, so the fact that you came at us with a quote was super exciting.
Yeah.
We were pumped for that.
It was perfect. So,
yeah.
Yep. Look for that. It's coming up now.
Yeah. So but we took a sidestep to do werewolves just to get into the Halloween spirit.
Yes.
And we ran down as good a history of werewolves, fiction and nonfiction, that we could.
So, shall we go back in time?
We're going to go back to the way start of time, double aught BC.
Yeah, and then we're going to work our way up towards the end of the episode. We're going to be hitting some werewolf movies.
Yep.
So,
we're going to go all the way.
Yep.
We're going to go from their historical precedent all the way up to where they're kind of sitting at with modern, not modern, fuck modern, early cinema within our lifetime. We'll do it that way.
There we go. So way back before the times of written record, there was it's called a hypothetical language called Proto-Indo-European, which is, I'm not going to go into that. There's plenty of videos on it. And with the language came study of the culture, the Proto-Indo-European culture. And so, again, it's all hypothetical, but it's based off of kind of working backwards with what we do know about these different cultures that
when you
have
start
similarities.
Getting into proto-European or proto-anything, you're starting to get into like Tower of Babel situations where it's like these languages were gobbledygook melded together.
Yep. Yes. And we've just done the best we could to figure them out without writing, and we do that by tracing language backwards. Finding words that
and bear
are
in mind we are
overlap.
We are but humble purveyors of the information.
Yes.
We're not even the guys that are doing the research.
No.
So be kind.
There's a lot of great channels on this stuff. If there is some interest, maybe I'll post a link to a guy that I know.
You know what? I think that would be a good idea.
There we go. So look for that. I'm not going to drop the name right now. Maybe future Eric will do it here. And the link will definitely be in the description.
Yeah.
So anywho, back to the werewolves. It started way back. There was they believed that there was like a wolf cult.
Oh.
Yes. The word that they kind of reconstructed for these people was called the Koryos. That's K-O with a symbol over it.
With a little nick.
R-Y-O-S. And these were...
Perfect.
Gypsy has to kick us off.
We brought a werewolf to the werewolf episode.
Chipper!
She is transforming. Oh, God.
I need an old priest and a young priest. Oh, wait, that's demons. Anyway.
So, this cult was usually made up of unmarried males. What they would do, it was kind of like an initiation process for them. It was a part of their like warrior tradition. They would go off into the wilderness and live in small groups, hunt and fight and, raid other, villages or whatever.
See, that's cool because we actually still use that tactic. A lot of like special forces military training will do stuff.
Oh,
like
that is interesting. You're right.
Take them into a small group, drop them off, and just let them work together.
The Spartans had like the Golgi.
They were the ones I was going to bring up as kind of a similar. You're right. Yeah.
Yep.
No, that they crossed my mind too when these guys came up, and I didn't even think about it going up into the modern day.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
so big. The Alaskan State Troopers, they actually have an island that is owned by them that they drop their trainees off on. It's like, hey, if you're in a plane and it crashes, you got to know how to survive in the wilderness. So here you go.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a training technique that these guys did back before time recording that we are still using today.
Yeah.
So you know what?
Wow.
Wolves know something.
Yeah. We must. There you go. must have learned a lot from these guys. But eventually they would, once they kind of went through this initiation period, they would then return to society and stuff. So that's kind of where that like, and I think part of the initiation seems to be like, you know, getting into that headset of a wolf and being out in the wilderness and stuff like that. And I think that's what kind of led to.
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of that scene in the movie The Northman, where they're around the bonfire and they're acting as wolves.
Well, you have to get into the berserker mindset.
Yeah.
Channeling the spirit of the animals.
Yep.
And you would see just that change in their posture.
God, how
and
good
their
was that
behavior. Oh, it was such a good movie. I love that movie.
Hell, that movie was sweet. Anyway.
So, and it seems to be kind of like that. And I think that later evolved into other, I think as we've seen like some traditions later on in human history.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
will crop up probably as we go along. So the first, what I'm going to say, probably the first written record of werewolves up next is the within the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
So
correct? I got to be honest, like my knowledge of Gilgamesh is spotty.
Mine's pretty limited.
I've never actually taken a long, which is, I mean, shame on me. Here we are, we're storytellers. That's the title me and you would like to have if people wanted to give us one, is we're storytellers. We like it. And here's the first story and we haven't dove into it.
Right.
You know what? I was just getting ready to say that's a good
idea.
What that's telling me is that we need to just do an episode on it, period. That's what that's telling me. Stay tuned.
Absolutely.
Jerry, you came across this one as well.
Oh, yeah. I believe it's Gilgamesh. In the story, he's trying to fend off a suitor or something. Yeah.
Huh.
And so someone gets turned into a werewolf or a wolf. I think a woman turns someone into a wolf. I didn't look into it too much, but as much as you say.
Sure. But he also, God, he had a guy with him that was kind of wolf-like, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, the wild man.
Yes.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Is that Enkidu? Is that
Enkidu? That's it.
That was it.
That is it.
Yep.
Nice firing from the hip there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had long hair and was very ferocious and kind of beast-like.
Yeah.
Could have also been a Sasquatch.
Oh.
Just saying.
saying.
He was just blurry.
Hey, we don't talk about people's birth defects.
So in Gilgamesh, it was then more like a curse.
In Gilgamesh, basically he shuns this woman who's kind of got a crush on him, and the reason why he shuns her is he's like, hey, you were married before and you ended up having a fight or something with your husband. You turned him into a wolf. Oh. So piss off.
Okay. So like it was a curse.
It was a curse.
Yes.
And the curse of it seems to be kind of where it took its legs, right? That theme kind of ran through for a long time and still does today.
Still does.
Which leads us right into the what is it? His name is Lycinian or Lycin, the king.
Lycaon?
Lycaon.
Lycaon. We'll be pronouncing it however we can from here, folks.
It's a Greek.
Yes. So he was a Greek king of, I didn't write it down, but Arcadia. Thank you. Yes, Arcadia. And what this king decided to do under the circumstances, according to the story, was he served Zeus one of King Lycaon's 50 sons. He had 50 sons, so he had one to spare.
Motherfucker.
He decided to roast the kid and serve him to Zeus to test his omniscience, to see if he really
okay.
Like he didn't believe that he was
a god.
Zeus.
Yeah, he's like, maybe you're not. Yeah, I don't think you're Zeus.
Yeah.
So
I have so many. I'll ask the one that's kind of twisted first. Why wouldn't you just pick somebody else's kid? You're king.
Oh, he was like a cruel guy.
I understand. I mean, even still, like, but like, okay, you have 50 sons, which is impressive. But like, what happens if a plague hits? Like, why are you sparing? Why wouldn't you just be like, hey, I don't like you. You didn't wax my shoes properly. You got a kid.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say it. Yeah, like why didn't he just have one of his subjects' kids? Like, yeah.
Why is it got to be?
He was much of an asshole.
Yeah, he's just like, this one reminds me. You remind me of your mother.
So, Zeus, being Zeus, since he really was Zeus, knew what happened and decided to punish King Lycaon by turning him into a wolf and killing the rest of his offspring, but bringing back the kid that was sacrificed, who then became king afterwards.
Can you imagine the PTSD you have? You're that kid. My dad killed me, roasted me, and then I was brought back. I was in heaven. I was happy. I
made it to Elysium.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
And then Zeus rips me out of there, brings me back, and now all of my family, like my brothers were fine. Like I had 47 of them. Timmy had Down syndrome, you dick. He didn't do anything. Now they're all dead.
They're all gone.
Of course, Zeus rolled like that, though.
Yeah, he sure did. He wasn't too great of a guy. You know, part of so one of the things about Zeus is like he'll have like two parts to his name, like Zeus blank, like first last name is all kind of what it sounds like.
Sure.
But not really, clearly not really, but it was a word that looked like lichen and I think was related to it as one of the pairings.
I saw that.
You saw that too?
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. I didn't really realize he had a tie to wolves.
Yeah, I wonder if he has multiple of those, like multiple monikers that would correlate with his myths.
Yeah.
It's because
Different
Zeus
aspects,
and Odin are the same person.
Who and who?
Zeus and Odin are the same person.
Yeah.
Zeus, Odin, Jupiter.
It's a personal theory.
They certainly have some overlap.
That
is for sure.
They definitely.
So there we go. It's another story involving a curse of being turned into a wolf, which again is interesting. Kind of going back to as far back as we can get with the roots. It was more of a, I don't know. Well, I guess I don't know how voluntary the rite of passage was for our wolf cult.
Well, I would imagine it would have to be voluntary if you're joining the cult.
Yeah. If you're like, I'm going to be a warrior, so this is what I need to do. Yeah.
It could have been like a good option for like advancing your life.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But
at the bottom somewhere.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's interesting about it, in my opinion, though, is right up until this point, the wolf and the werewolf, all of that was external. It hadn't taken this internal aspect that we know as the werewolf today.
Yeah. That's right.
Even the curse aspect of it today is recognized as releasing the inner beast.
Yeah.
Now, you can make that argument maybe with the king because he was, kind of a monster and stuff.
Right.
But it's still like there's no tie to him being a wolf.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Although he would then immediately basically put into exile too. I would think, he wasn't the person in charge of the country anymore.
Sure.
And
but
so
I mean, there was no tie. There was no tie to wolves to where Zeus was like, well, now you're going to be a wolf.
Oh, right.
I could see one that was like, because they were eating the human flesh. He was like, well, because you eat human flesh, now you are.
Yeah, but why wouldn't that be? Yeah, but it could be a bear, could be a lion.
Yeah, it could be.
Right. Like why wolf specifically?
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. It's kind of
And so, it's just interesting that the wolf, for whatever reason, was the animal that seemed to kind of take this in.
Yeah.
But where we're at now in the history is where it does start to become internalized.
Mm-hmm.
With the Viking kind of culture kind of took that into themselves versus it being an exterior force.
Yes. And so this is one of those, I imagine, evolutions of the Koryos I mentioned earlier, which the berserker class of the Vikings, they had bear and they had wolf berserker cults.
Yeah, that's something we're going to reference the Northmen again. That was something that they did that I really appreciated that I have found that a lot of people don't know is that the berserkers came in kind of a few flavors.
Yeah.
They weren't just bear. They were bear and wolf.
Right.
Any sort of vicious animal you could channel to make yourself a better warrior.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. They're like, these things are really good at killing. Let's, which one am I going to exemplify?
Yeah. And so you had that in the Northmen, but.
And a pretty neat thing about that I'll mention, like, watch the movie. This is a light spoiler, but like, they show the character has like both aspects.
Yeah, he's able to take on
that way.
But it's very clear. There's a very clear distinction, but he doesn't like, it's not liquid per se.
Right. Yeah. But you can just see it in his stance and the way he's fighting when he's the bear and when he's the wolf.
Yeah.
It's very, cool. Yeah.
Well, Alexander Skarsgård's a hell of an actor.
Yeah.
But this leads us up to so we're talking, we're in the BC era. We're talking like, so the cult of the wolf doesn't have a timeline, a date really attached to it.
Right.
We're just like, it was a thing when we don't know. Gilgamesh was 2100 BC. Now we're just passing the 4th century with the Zeus tale, and we're into the 13th century with the Vikings. Like, this stuff is old.
Yeah.
So, Jerry, you had the what is it, the Volsung?
Oh, the saga of the Volsungs.
Volsungs, there we go.
Yeah, this is cool. This wasn't written down until like the 13th century, but
That's the date we have, just because it's the only hard date you can get.
The Viking age was in like the 700s to 800, area.
And a lot of it was third hand.
yeah, it was written down by like the monks that had
Catholic
gathered
monks.
some of the stories. Yes, but in the Volsung saga, there's these two men. It's a father and a son. It's named Sigmund and Sinfjotli.
Sinfjotli.
Yeah, and if you want to know why they're in the woods living this way, you should check out the saga of the Volsungs.
Ooh, okay.
But they live in the woods and they wander upon this hut and they find these wolf skins at the hut. And they're like, all right, well, we'll put these on. And when they put them on, they find that they turn into wolves. Very vicious
that's going to be a common reoccurring theme.
Yeah. So they put them on and then they possess the power, cunningness, and valor of wolves. Ooh. So they decide, well, okay, we're going to go hunt in the woods. And so they decide to split up.
I find it very interesting that they attached valor to it.
Yeah, me too. That struck me.
Because this is, tying in with the Viking berserker.
The Vikings had, like, where everybody else had kind of a negative view of these things, man, the Vikings were really like, nah, they
kind of embraced that.
They did.
Of it.
They like feared and respected them. We want to channel that into our battles.
Because we want to be feared and respected.
And so I can't help but wonder, jumping ahead a wee bit, werewolves and Satanism become tied together pretty closely for a long time. And I wonder if it's just because, like, the Viking religion, pagans, you can imagine, you can imagine a Catholic monk who doesn't know anything discovers a temple for the wolf, right? And it gets tied to Satanism.
Yeah, because he's like, oh, these pagans, and they would, obviously the pagans were seen, that belief system was in opposition to the Catholic. Whoops, there's my upbringing. The Christians of the time.
So I actually would say Catholics, because it was really the Catholic. Well, so the Protestants and stuff started pushing that later. But at this point, it probably was the Catholic Church,
right,
in Europe.
Yeah, 13th century. I think the Protestant Reformation comes later when the trials start.
So this was the Catholic Church.
Oh, there we go. My slip works.
It does. It's accurate. Yeah. Listen, it's uncomfortable but accurate. Anyway, continue, Jared.
Oh, yeah. Well, they decide to split up, and they're like, if you're fighting any more than 7 men, howl, and I'll come and help you.
Oh, well, shit.
Okay.
6 is fine, 7's too many.
Yeah. Any more than 7 men, howl, and I'll come help whoever needs help.
Right.
So the son decides to fight like 11 men on his own.
Oh.
And doesn't howl.
Huh.
So then when his dad comes as the wolf and he finds him and he's fought all these men, and he's like, well, he gets angry because he's a wolf and he's savage. He's not in control, So he injures his son.
Oh.
He like bites him.
Yeah.
And then his son is like, dying. And then
Jesus.
And then a raven, we all knew
who that might be.
Raven might be. Yeah. Shows up and has this magic leaf that heals the son.
Oh.
Yeah, so the raven gives him this magic leaf and he heals him. And then because of all the savageness, they decide when the 10th day comes, they take off the pelts and then burn them. Because they can only remove them every 10 days.
Whoa.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a curse that gives them power.
Right.
But they also are stuck in wolf form for 10 days.
At a time.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that on, like, do they have to put it back on? Yeah.
Well, they can take it off on the 10th day, but
then when they
put it back on
if
to
they
do
want the
another
wolf power, they would have to put it back on. So they decide to burn them and not use them because of
it's becoming a little too much.
They have.
Yeah.
I wonder whose hut that was they stumbled upon.
Yeah, I wondered that too, but that's never wasn't explained.
It isn't.
No.
Oh, I do have a theory. Yeah, with the raven. Was it a raven or a crow?
It was a raven.
Raven. Yeah, yes. Raven coming in.
Yeah.
Are we leaning towards Odin?
It very much could have been because Odin did kind of guide this. If you read the saga of the Volsungs, Odin is kind of like guiding this family and their revenge and things. So it very well could have been.
Okay.
It's not explicitly said, but
right.
Okay. I wonder what the lesson there he was teaching them was.
Ooh, yeah, I don't know. Maybe in the context of the story, we'd kind of get a better idea.
Yeah, there's a lot more to that story that I would suggest. looking into.
Cool.
But neat.
Yeah, we
But
absolutely will.
Kind of an opportunity for them to get in touch with the animal within, maybe. Hey.
Right, so that brings us up to the 15th century where some shit was going down in Switzerland.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. I just wonder how it originally got tied with witchcraft. It's got to be from the misunderstanding of the berserkers and stuff, right?
Well, I don't know. I would think yes. Yeah, I would think that would be from that because it's like, it sounds very cultish. There were other sorts of, cults in the pagan vein of thought that were much more witchcrafty. So it probably was, a lot of it's.
But it's funny because it's funny to me because if you were to ask like the Vikings themselves, like they clearly understood what magic was, right? They believed in magic, they knew what it was.
Yes.
But if you were to ask them about this wolf thing and the berserkers, they'd be like, "Well, that's not magic."
Right, because to them, magic was more of a feminine thing. It didn't fall in the warrior class, really. Right. Besides, Yeah, it was more of a. They probably would explain it as a mindset, even if they couldn't quite communicate it in such terms. Yeah.
And so it's funny that the primitive, I'm doing air quotes, the primitive people had a seemingly better grasp of this concept than the Catholic Church did, which is just confounded because, religion and like understanding of other things just goes so together so well.
Yeah.
And I'm not even anti-religion, but I mean, religion does make you very resistant to new ideas.
Once you get,
it's one of the drawbacks.
Pretty firmly set.
Yep.
Yeah.
All good things in moderation.
Yeah.
But it's just funny to me how this got tied in with witchcraft and cats and brooms. And like these things are not related.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit.
Like in the modern sense. Yeah.
Superstitions.
Yeah. Just where it winds up from this kind of this beginning. Because I would say Switzerland is kind of the kickoff of the more modernized equivalent of the werewolf.
Ooh, okay.
Because now it's looked at as like a thing that you need to hold trials for and things like that. Whereas up until this point,
is where that began.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jerry, you got this one right.
Oh yeah. The in Switzerland it started with the Valais witch trials.
The Valais witch trials. And that's when people started accusing people of the lycanthropy and stuff.
Okay.
Along with witchcraft and things.
Yeah. So it was lumped in right away with like witchcraft trials and things like that.
Was this the one where the guy confessed to being a werewolf and he had the belt, or is that the other one that you're talking about? That is
going to be Peter Stump. And he was in Cologne, Germany.
Oh, okay. Well, that's who we're thinking of. And the Switzerland thing kind of kicked it all off. But the one that everybody, if you know about werewolf trials and stuff, this is the guy that this is
the most interesting case, I think. He was like a wealthy farmer.
Peter Stump. Stump. That's German.
He had a couple other names that they had for him.
Oh, God.
It's spelled differently. And,
okay.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Not like motherfucking Stump.
Yeah.
This is in 1587?
1589.
1589.
That's when his trial was. But I guess for like 25 years, there was like people going missing and children going missing and animals being eviscerated and stuff. They were finding these things.
Okay.
Huh.
And eventually they tortured him, or someone accused him. And under torture, he confessed that at 12 years old, the devil gave him a belt that allowed him to turn into a werewolf.
Oh.
And it was kind of cool the way he described it. It was the likeness of a greedy, devouring wolf, strong and mighty, with eyes great and large, which in the night sparkled like fire, a mouth great and wide, with most sharp and cruel teeth, a huge body, and mighty paws. So that's the way that he described it.
Is that the way he described the devil?
I think
that's the way he's described
the wolf that he turns into. Yeah.
Oh.
And he confessed to killing and eating 14 children and 2 pregnant women.
Whoa.
Wow.
So what's interesting to me is he started describing. So like you would think that he would be describing like himself, right? But then he started adding the paws and stuff. So it's like it literally turned him into a wolf, not like the person. Because at first he kind of describes like the personality, greedy, hungry. So you kind of get a picture of this guy that puts on this belt and then he just goes crazy and starts doing things. But he's like, no, this actually turned me into a paw and fur wolf.
Wow. Yeah, and it does kind of walk you through that transformation too. That feeling of what's going on internally, and then
he described when he like ate the pregnant women's fetuses. He would eat the heart out of the fetus, and he called it a dainty morsel.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
Damn.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so eating the heart specifically was something that popped up. Jump ahead real quick to an episode, something we're not going to really cover, but in an episode of Supernatural, when they introduce the werewolves, they ate hearts.
The wolf, yeah, they have to eat the heart.
So I thought that was kind of random, and I was like, that's something they just made up for the show, but maybe I'm wrong.
Could be.
Yeah.
He even ate his own child at one point. He ate its brain. Like he specifically ate the brain of his child.
Well, now that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because there's a whole host of mental illnesses that can come along with eating the brain of an individual.
Oh, you're right.
That's like mad cow disease.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, no. That makes this story a lot more like grounded.
It provides some, there's a little backing there. He very well may have.
Yeah.
Yeah. He also got accused of incest with his daughter.
Oh my God.
I mean, if you're going to eat somebody's brain, if you're going to eat your kid's brain, then I mean.
And he confessed to intercourse with a succubus that was sent to him by the devil.
Okay. Wow. So he did a lot in the vein of Satan-y stuff.
Yeah. So it could be, how they would, just accuse people of things sometimes just to get their lands and things, like the way that the witch trials would work.
Right.
But it's very possible that he was actually a serial killer. Doing these things
and just envisioned himself as
it's a justification.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to claim to be a werewolf and also eat people in real life, then you're as good as.
Yeah.
He was if he did all these things, he definitely was a vicious individual.
Yeah.
Doing some really fucked up shit.
Now, I'll take a moment here to just kind of point out a theme that I'm starting to see that started further back than I thought. Was there's a lot of like inner familiar harm tied with the more horrific side of the werewolf stuff that we're finding. Our Greek king killed his own son, and that's why he became a werewolf or a wolf. And let's see, were there other examples?
This guy killed and ate his own son.
Yep.
This is a theme that actually is carried on. So there's an aspect of werewolfism that's like only a loved one only a person that loves the werewolf can kill him. And so there's a lot of ties to family in the werewolf lores. You even see this in the Universal monster where Larry Talbot is killed by his father.
Yep.
As a werewolf.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Like
there's a lot of ties to fathers and sons with werewolves, it seems.
Yes. That's true too, isn't it?
And like feeding the savagery in you, destroying the ones that you love.
Right.
Oh shit. You're right. Like our inner animal destroys those closest to us.
Yeah.
Whoa. Life lessons here at Cult of Lore.
As a warning to all you out there.
Beware the beast within. So
this was 1589. Werewolves would continue to play kind of a part with the kind of hysteria and things that was carrying on at that time, included and from this point on, they would forever be linked with the witches and witch trials and things.
Yep. They were outside with.
This brings us to the case of the Beast of Gévaudan.
The Beast of Gévaudan.
Now, please forgive me. This is a lot of French. A lot of the names of people I'm going to just skip over because I'm not even going to try. I think I've got kind of their titles down. We'll go with that.
There we go. So we have some identifiers.
Yeah, because these names are like Jean-Luc Braffy, and I'm not even gonna.
Yeah, we'll spare you guys that.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear it. But this took place in the Gévaudan region of France, which was described as a real shithole.
Yeah.
Like, it was cold, it was foresty, but it was kind of one of those forest areas where not a lot grew because the trees choked everything out.
Yeah.
It was hard soil. The people that lived there were poor and dirty. most people that visited there wrote home. Like you can just find letter after letter of rich people basically that like went and visited this place. It's like, to hell with this, I'm leaving. It was
jeez.
And
bad side of town.
Wolf attacks were common.
Right.
And a lot of people think, and they're like, well, that helps prove that this was just a regular wolf. Well, my thing is these people were well acquainted with wolves.
Oh yeah, they'd be used to what a wolf.
And so if they're like, this is not a normal wolf.
Yeah.
I think it lends more credence to there being something different about this.
Yeah.
But anyway, this took place from 1764 all the way to 1767. So about 4 years. And in 4 years, there were 610 attacks.
That's a lot.
Whoa.
And about 500 deaths, they think.
Wow. 500 deaths?
Yeah. This was just a bonkers 4 years.
Wow.
So that number is probably significantly higher. And it's probably, honestly, I bet it was probably double that.
Yeah.
Because there's very specific circumstances that led to people not reporting it.
Yeah.
So people started getting just attacked. It all kicked off with one specific attack where there was a survivor, but he told of this gigantic wolf. I think he actually described it as being the size of a large calf or cow.
Whoa.
And some reports have it being as large as a horse. Now, I'm going to leave a link in the description. Eric knows the video I'm talking about. There's a video of a wolf-looking creature.
Oh, yep.
That is easily the size of a horse.
Oh, it's nuts. We'll have to show that to you too.
We'll show you this after this. It's one of the few videos of like a cryptid style creature that I'm like, I love cryptids, but I'm very skeptical about it. This, I have no fucking idea.
That sounds terrifying.
It's a very big wolf-looking thing. You'll see it. It gives me the willies.
And it has stuff for scale. It has trees, and there's a dog running at it when it decides to move. And so you can take a scale from the dog, and it's easily the size. It's like the size of a horse.
Just as far as we can tell from the video, the dog is fine, people.
Yeah, nothing happens to the dog.
Yeah.
It actually runs off. It behaves much like a creature would.
Right.
It doesn't like become a monster or anything and start attacking people. But anyway, he described it as being the size of a large calf.
Yeah.
And so that really got people's attention. They talked about, one of the descriptions he gave was that it had kind of tan or tawny brown fur with a black stripe.
Oh.
This gave rise to the notion that it might have been a striped hyena.
Really?
That's kind of the coloration of a coyote.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The coyotes are like tan with like a black
stripe
on their back.
Oh, interesting.
But I ran into this
massive coyote.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Gigantism.
But I came, like, as laughable as it sounds, I came across this striped hyena theory like a lot. Excuse me, pardon. But in parlez-vous français? None of that was correct. But I was like, I just cannot get to where somebody would look at a hyena and be like, yeah, calf-sized wolf.
And I mean, was it in the right region for a hyena anyway?
No,
that's France, right? There's no hyenas in France.
No.
Yeah.
But there was like a traveling circus that had one or some crazy shit or something like that. I'm like, yeah, so if you do the loop-de-loo around a bend and through the woods, go through the fire ring of death, and yeah, you can get there. I don't think it was a fucking hyena. But anyway, the attacks kept going. I mean, they were like, and what was interesting about them is every attack was like this thing would go through the throat and rip the head off the victim.
Jeez.
That's a lot of bite force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
sever a head from a body.
And I read
insane.
I read one
spines are tough.
I read one report that said of the 500 deaths, only 68 of them showed signs of being eaten at all.
So it's just killing to kill.
It was just killing to kill.
Huh.
Now this got the attention of the king, and he dispatched a man. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. He dispatched him to be kind of lord over the Gévaudan and bring and kill this beast. And he was given carte blanche to kind of run the town as he saw fit, do whatever he needed to do.
Yep.
And after months, and after actually, I think it was almost a year of complete failure. Meanwhile, these deaths are just compounding because, 610 attacks in 4 years, like that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's over 100 a year by a large margin.
Like, we got to do something about it.
Yeah. His reputation and his family's reputation were tanking because he just couldn't. What the highfalutins in France thought was just an animal problem, right? Like to them, they're like, you can't just kill this one thing and quiet down the peasants. And he's like, you don't understand what's happening here. Like there were several instances where they saw it and they shot it and it just like shrugged it off and just ran off into the woods. But he started having a mental breakdown over it. He actually made it against the rules of the town. If one of your family members was killed by this thing, you had to leave them. And their hope was that it would come back to the kill. And so, yeah. But he would, like, it wasn't even after a few days. He would just leave them out there to rot. Because it's like somebody would get killed and then he would stake out that body. It wouldn't return. It would kill somebody else. And then he would move on to the next body and camp on it. Meanwhile, the family was not allowed to go back to that other one.
Yeah.
And reclaim the body.
Wow.
And so he was arresting people and punishing them, putting them in stockades and stuff for burying family members.
Yeah.
And so what this led to was people stopped reporting deaths of family members by this thing.
Oh, okay. So that's why we probably have more deaths than are on record. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Like we have letters and stuff from him. He was going crazy. And it's kind of sad because a lot of it is about how he is haunted by the deaths that he just can't solve.
Yeah.
So he started off, I think, as a guy that was really tortured by the actual deaths and his responsibility for not, and then it just spiraled out into this craziness.
Right.
Which is kind of, which is kind of cool because you have, you know, the ties of the inner monster coming out, even dealing with the werewolf. Brings out the inner monster.
Man was a monster all along.
Yeah. So he gets fired basically and goes back in shame. And they bring in this father and son who are like, they're called, the dad's name, his title is the master of the hunt, or the lieutenant of the hunt is what it is. All they did was hunt wolves, and they had a pack of dogs that specialized in hunting wolves, and they failed. They didn't even see the goddamn thing.
It just completely evaded them.
Yeah.
Kept on killing though.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so they brought in a new guy after that, and he faked it. He shot a very large gray wolf, which he then had taxidermied on top of a frame that was twice as large as the actual wolf itself. And then sent that back to the courts of France. So this guy faked this wolf killing, and he's, you know, made this really big taxidermy that was fake, and he sent it off to the court, and he went home, did all this kind of what we would consider to be a press tour, right? This is the beast. This is what
victory.
Yep.
Yep.
And the deaths kept coming. And so finally we got this farmer. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. It's way, way complicated.
Okay. Farmer man.
Yep.
Farmer Morty.
Morty. The point is that this was the king and the soldiers and all these trained people completely failed. And this farmer who lived there, who had just kind of had enough, went out and hunted it on its own. And he claims that he killed it and burned the body, but he shot it with a silver bullet. And that's how he killed it. Now, there are some conflicting reports about whether or not the deaths continued on after this or not. The king, in frustration, sent a group of soldiers that just started cleaning house. They just went through the woods and started shooting every wolf they found and just wholesale slaughtering them.
Yep.
So these two things happened relatively closely. So who actually stopped the attacks is still up for debate.
Right.
But this remains the single biggest incident of a wolf killings in human history.
Yeah.
500 deaths by this thing. And like I said, almost every death, there were a few that weren't like that, but like every death was like the head was just ripped off these people.
Man.
There was one really cool story. This mother has a statue of her. Actually, I guess she has a couple, but she was with her kids out in the woods when they were attacked by this wolf, and the wolf grabbed her baby and she threw herself on top of the wolf and was fighting and wrestling with it and actually managed to grab it by the testicles.
Hell yeah, mama.
Causing it to let go of her child. But on its way out, it actually grabbed an even younger infant. And the mom took off after it, and she basically collapsed in exhaustion like several feet from it and she witnessed it devour her child.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, a lot. So I think something like 38 of them were children or younger, like 8 or younger.
Jeez,
There's a lot of
man.
babies and children that were killed by this
That is
thing.
tragic. Like, man, that's another common theme among the werewolf stuff, isn't it?
It's definitely
usually
children.
kids. Yeah, usually children.
So that's
Ugh.
so that was the Beast of Jamadan, and
Yeah, and that's the first mention of the silver bullet as
That
far
is-
as
that
we've
is-
come across so far.
that is the origin of the silver bullet.
Ah.
Yeah. So a detail that kind of got lost that I actually think should be more important than the silver is he melted down a silver medallion of the Virgin Mary.
Oh, interesting.
So throwing the church in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It was at holy ties.
Exactly. So
Okay.
I actually think it might be more. Yeah. It's all right. Yeah. So I think the holiness of it actually got kind of lost on a lot of the big legend of it
Yeah.
early on.
I think you're right. That is pretty interesting because usually, like, it went to vampires. You know, the holy relics.
Yeah,
like,
it did,
be
but
repelling
it
them,
didn't.
But
For some reason, in modern culture, the werewolf didn't follow through.
no, it just kept to the silver.
Yep.
Interesting.
So that kind of brings us up. We're starting to get into like the 1800s and that brings us over into America. Now we're crossing into like the
Yes.
Michigan Dogman territory.
Yeah.
Which goes back further than most people think.
right. Oh, that's true.
Because that's
Yeah.
still the Michigan Dogman. You have reports in the 80s, 90s now.
Yeah. This goes back. I have as far back as 1887 in Wexford County.
Right. And also in Wisconsin.
Oh,
Wisconsin's
really?
got a lot of werewolves.
Does it really?
Does. The
Wow.
Beast of Bray Road, I believe, was Wisconsin.
Ooh. Okay. The Beast of Bray Road. There's a lot of. I like our Beasts of too. That's always. A good.
We're not going to dive too heavy into the Michigan Dogman or the Beast of Bray Road because, well, quite frankly, we're working on some cryptid stuff
Yeah.
for the Cult Talk Net channel that we don't want to deprive or rob from.
Right.
So we'll go over them a little bit, but
Yeah.
don't expect a huge dive into these.
Not too much. The main point I want to make here is it was a more recent sighting, and the description was interesting. So also something else you'll notice going back, a lot of it was like you're just turned into a wolf. Man becomes wolf. This is a description that's more in line with some of the stuff that we run into. I think actually more man-like, where it's got the bipedal, canine-like stuff, torso of a man.
Yeah, because up to this
Stuff
point,
like
we've been
that.
dealing with a lot. Like even the Beast of Gévaudan was described as a wolf the size of a cow or horse, but it was still
Right.
four-legged.
Yeah, so it's often been like, four-legged wolf, sometimes bigger, sometimes not. Like, I'm not sure about our Greek king, whether or not like he was a particularly big wolf or.
Well, it just had to turn him into a wolf, so at the bare
Yeah.
minimum, he's still continuing that trend of 4 legs.
So
Yeah.
this becomes more of a monster than like a transformation kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Now it is much more like, yeah.
We're starting to get into the Hollywood-esque.
Yeah. So there we go. That's the main thing I wanted to touch on there with the Michigan Dogman and
Right.
stuff like that.
Right, and so that brings us up to 1913, which was the very first werewolf committed to film.
Ah, dun, dun, dun.
The Werewolf was done in 1913. This was done by Universal Films, so it seems like Universal has always kind of had the werewolf
Yeah.
under their umbrella.
I think that's really cool because I mean they still do to this day, and it started way back. This was the first werewolf committed to film.
It was a short film. It was a silent film. 1913. The plot is basically this Navajo woman becomes a witch after her husband has left her, and she teaches some skills to her daughter, who then transforms into a wolf to carry out attacks against white settlers.
Huh.
And then 100 years later, she returns.
Oh. Wow.
And wreaks havoc against them as a wolf.
I'll be darned.
So this ties into Skinwalkers a
It
little bit.
does. Yeah. Which I'm sure like comes to mind a lot with people, especially in America, when they're thinking about werewolves. We also often think of skinwalkers. Although to me, it's much more of a shaman witch thing.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
I can understand where people that don't look into them a lot
Right.
would tie the two together. But man, I'll tell you what, if I had to pick a shit sandwich, I would much rather deal with a werewolf than a skinwalker.
I think so too.
Oh my
God.
Yeah,
me
it's
too.
one of the creepiest stories I've heard.
Yeah, they're pretty rough.
So there
not
was
just wolves either. Like they'll turn into other things or embody other things. But yeah, maybe that's something else we'll have to cover someday. Skinwalkers.
But that brings us up to the Werewolf in London in 1935, which we're going to be covering the kind of updated version of that, the American Werewolf in London.
Yeah. So that one, I actually didn't know that Werewolf until I started looking at the Wolfman, which was
1941.
I thought that was the first, real werewolf story until, we found
two more.
Yeah. Two more preceding it. Werewolf in London. And then again, the Wolfman, I think, is what really started solidifying things into.
I definitely think everybody would agree that Universal Studios' The Wolfman is probably where werewolves became cemented in the zeitgeist.
As far as cinema and pop culture goes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Anybody who doesn't know, The Wolfman, it stars Lon Chaney Jr., who is just one of those Universal actors. So is his dad, Lon Chaney. I believe Lon Chaney actually played the Phantom of the Opera, which was the very first Universal monster.
Oh, cool. Neat. Okay.
I believe so.
Awesome.
Carrying on the tradition.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it also starred, the Wolfman also starred Bela Lugosi, which, of course, was Dracula.
Yes.
For the Universals.
I want to suck your blood.
yeah, that guy.
Yes.
But I mean, it follows Lon Chaney Jr., who's Larry Talbot, who returns to town. This very small town. His family's kind of like the aristocracy of it. His dad is big into telescopes and stuff, and he meets a woman named Gwen who sells him a walking stick that has a wolf and a pentagram on it. It's made out of silver. He takes Gwen and her friend to go see the Gypsy Circus that's out in the woods. They meet Mr. Bela Lugosi, who's a fortune teller.
Huh?
He reads a pentagram on Gwen's hand. I believe her name is Gwen. Well, I'm going to call her Gwen. And that tells him that she is his next victim. That's part of the curse of the Wolfman, as they see the pentagram in the palm.
Oh.
And so he gives her this really kind of foreboding fortune and tells her to leave. He's like, leave, get out. And also on their way to the gypsy camp, they found wolfsbane blooming.
Oh.
And the saying that we get from the Wolfman is, even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
Huh.
Which is, of course, the quote that you heard at the beginning.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So he sees that the wolfbane that they have picked is blooming and that the moon is out. So he knows he's going to turn. And so he's telling them to he's not telling them he's a werewolf, but he's like, you guys need to go, come back tomorrow. I'll tell you all then. And on their way home, he kills Gwen doesn't kill Gwen. Gwen is the woman he meets.
Uh-huh.
Kills the friend who he sees the pentagram in and bites and turns Larry. Larry becomes a werewolf and ends up being killed by his father with the silver stick, the silver cane.
Yep.
Killed by someone he loves.
Yeah.
Or loves him.
I'm correct.
Common theme again.
I'm curious. Did you have the Wolfman pulled up?
Yes.
Is her name Gwen?
You were correct. Her
Damn, yeah. I haven't seen that movie since I was like 9.
Gwendolyn.
But
that memory
I had 2 Universal monster movies. I had Frankenstein and I had the Wolfman, and I just watched the Wolfman over and over. Frankenstein was fun. Coincidentally, one thing that everybody always gets wrong on Frankenstein is his name is not Igor, is in fact Fritz.
Oh, interesting.
Igor didn't come in until the sequel.
Huh. Okay. So this is also the first mention of wolfsbane that,
as far as I can tell,
so far. I don't know if it's been. I didn't look into it well enough to know if it was tied to wolf cults or anything like that.
I haven't come across anything that involves wolfsbane up until then.
But now we see all of the pop culture ingredients coming together.
Yeah, this is definitely where what we know as a werewolf was cemented.
Yep. Wolfsbane and silver being the killer and the ties to the moon and stuff like that. The transformation and the kind of look for the Wolfman got cemented in this. Yep. And again, we're keeping to this apparently pretty ancient theme of like interfamiliar harm.
Right.
being
Yeah.
done.
The family paying the cost in some way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
And
says it's a poison.
wolfbane
It
is
is
a poison.
It is. Yeah. It is toxic I do know that if you ingest it.
I think it's the roots.
That way they don't know what it looks like.
Uh-oh.
I like when it's the roots, less identifiable.
I made you some tea.
And so we're going to jump up to 1981, which is what I consider to be probably the best werewolf movie put down. And it's got a lot of the themes already.
Yeah.
It's American Werewolf in London, of course.
Yeah.
This carries on with the wolf being more regular looking, 4 legs, large, big, hairy.
Yep. Yep. But big wolf, big version of wolf. Yep.
He did walk on all 4s.
Yeah.
Nazis.
Fucking thing looked like a bear.
It did.
Half the
It
time.
was so bulky.
Yeah. Beefy boy.
Yeah.
Big beefy boy.
No. Yep, and it was written by John Landis. I always get him confused with another guy, but John Landis ended up doing it. It was a phenomenal movie. It introduced, as far as I can tell, seeing the dead people, your victims.
Yeah. I haven't seen that much in other stuff, really.
Yeah, that was the only time I'd seen that.
Yeah. Have you come across that more or no? So I think that was it really lays on the curse element of it. It still makes it kind of a curse. Well, it's not the only thing that makes it a curse, but it makes it more curse-like in its vibe. You know?
And what's interesting about this movie, so American Werewolf in London, they did away with the silver, right? It can just be killed outright.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they really amped up the transformation.
Oh, Lord.
Compared to other movies in this. And that's kind of what this movie is known for.
Yeah. That was a pretty groundbreaking transformation scene, really.
It's long, it's drawn out, and it's painful.
Oh, God.
It almost makes it more realistic because if you were just, I'm a werewolf, that would probably kill you.
Yeah.
But if you like slowly were bursting into a werewolf, it's more survivable.
Yeah.
It also does away with a lot of the superhero-esque feelings of it. Like, oh, I'm going to turn into this werewolf. And like, you don't want to.
Right. Because it's fuck awful. And you don't really get, sometimes in fiction, like the werewolf, even in human form, will be kind of like has extra good smell
or hearing
like
or something. Yeah, you don't get any of that.
No, this just does not look like a good thing at all. And I'm kind of with you, Jerry, going back to what you were saying, where it's like a little more survivable. It's also like depicted where it's like the bones are breaking and rehealing as you're reforming and stuff. It's such a crunchy, painful,
almost like the curse of like Wolverine, how he goes through so much pain, but he regenerates.
Still hurts.
So he's always living through like a thing going on.
Yeah. So in this one, we follow David Kessler and Jack Goodman. They're 2 American backpackers that are hiking through the English moors, and they come across this kind of small little village in the moors, and they visit a tavern called the Slaughtered Lamb.
Yeah.
And these people, this town is well aware of werewolves. They even have a pentagram drawn on their wall. So once again, the pentagram becomes is still the symbol of the werewolf.
Oh yeah.
Just like in the Universal Wolfman.
Yep.
So they end up getting chased out of there because the people are rather unpleasant. And Jack is mauled and killed by the werewolf. And David is our character that's bitten and turned.
Yep.
And he ends up seeing Jack as a dead spirit. And he turns and kills a bunch of people. And he sees their spirits as they follow him around. He's eventually shot and killed. If you haven't seen that, we're underselling it, but if you haven't seen that movie, American Werewolf in London is the werewolf movie.
It's worth a watch for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
A lot of people point to The Howling as like the werewolf movie. American Werewolf in London is better.
Yeah.
The Howling has more werewolf in it, I would say.
Yeah. And I'll also kind of add it's kept the cult-like element to it.
It does.
Yeah.
It does have the cult worship kind of aspect to it.
Yeah.
They do have a kind of Rosemary's Baby, Hail Satan scene.
Yeah.
But I think overall, American Werewolf in London sells the horror of what happens to you as a werewolf much, much more. Whereas The Howling still portrays it almost as something that, with the right mindset, you would want to be this thing.
Right.
Like more of a tool instead of a curse.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, it's like it's unpleasant, but with a little bit of craziness, you can use it. American Werewolf in London, I would argue that I don't care how fucking crazy you are. That's not.
Yeah, that's not how you want to live.
There's no benefits to that.
No, there
isn't. None at all. Yeah, you're seeing. You're the people you've killed. Like they're not just like hanging around. They're progressively rotting as they go.
Yeah, and they're
tortured.
They're not nice to you.
No, they're not, and they're suffering and
constantly encouraging you to kill yourself
because that's the only way they can be set free.
Yeah, it's like if you think having suicidal thoughts in your brain is bad, imagine having these walking, rotting spirits.
Yeah,
more than one.
Yeah.
And they just compound the longer you live.
Because every period of time that you're going through the full moon, you're racking more up, Yeah. You kind of find.
They're just in limbo hanging out around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what cool symbolism for the guilt of hurting other people.
Yeah,
like
because
that
you're
inner
faced
animal
with what you've done.
Yeah.
Even out of your control, but you still feel guilty about it.
But you can argue that people who have done horrible things felt like they were out of it was out of their control, but they still retained the guilt from it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting thematically.
And then the last more modern movie, we kept it to the 1980s.
Yeah.
Again, werewolf films, really good ones. You can throw a dartboard and hit a generic chapped ass werewolf movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to get in trouble for this one. Ginger Snaps. I hate that movie. It's so over the top. There's aspects to it that I like. I like the notion of a werewolf. Have you ever seen Ginger Snaps, Jared?
I have not.
That's good. It follows these two it's in the 1990s, and it follows two 90s goth sisters. And I say 90s goth because it's got a specific flavor to it.
This is already good.
Yep.
And they're in this neighborhood, like a suburbia style neighborhood, and this werewolf is killing pets and stuff in this suburban neighborhood when the older sister Ginger gets bit and turned. And it follows kind of standard werewolf fare where she's this goth death obsessed girl.
Yeah.
And they really use it as a half-assed metaphor for getting your period.
Yeah, kind of that. And then eventually maybe an STD symbolism too. It gets them crossed.
Yeah.
So it's
because she has a werewolf virus. Is that what it is?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. She got bit and she's and it's looks to be a permanent transformation. Once
you become a wolf, you're a wolf forever. Yeah, unless you get injected with wolfsbane. That is actually the cure.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
And the reason why I do not like this movie is every kind of monster within itself is its own allegory, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to attach fake allegories to it. I'll tell you another movie that did this that pissed me the fuck off was Antlers.
Oh,
it's a Wendigo movie that's all about domestic violence. Motherfuckers, the Wendigo has plenty, and the Wendigo is my favorite monster, so I've got a bone to pick with this fucking film.
Yeah.
The Wendigo is a symbol and an allegory for all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Domestic violence not being among them, and it doesn't need that.
Well, and they didn't even follow through well on that. That was a pretty rough, ending to their theme too.
Well, so they did. They just didn't. They ended it. So it's basically these two brothers their dad becomes a Wendigo, and then it's an allegory for domestic abuse, right? And then one son gets saved, and the other son becomes a Wendigo, so they just have to kill him.
Oh,
so it's kind of their ending for the allegory is some people are abused and turn out okay, and some people are abused and they don't, which is factually accurate, but it has nothing to do with a fucking Wendigo for one.
Yeah. Which also, I'm glad you did bring up the Wendigo, because that's something that's also kind of closely tied to some of the themes in the werewolf.
The transformation.
Yeah.
Cannibalism.
Eating human flesh being part of a curse.
And with the story of Zeus, the eating of the flesh was the trigger.
Yes.
Or was it Zeus?
Yeah.
With Zeus, it was the eating of the flesh that was the trigger. Same with the Wendigo.
Yep, specifically, that cannibalism too.
But in my opinion, Ginger Snaps and Antlers, they did the same thing, and it's a poor move, is you take something that's already an allegory for something and then you try to make it your allegory.
Right.
And I'm kind of stiff when it comes to the ideas of allegories anyway.
Yeah.
So, but it was 1994
for
Silver Bullet.
Silver Bullet was 85?
85. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, so 1985, we're going to do Stephen King's Silver Bullet. Now, this is my favorite werewolf movie. It's not the best werewolf movie, but it is my favorite.
Yeah.
I think Silver Bullet's phenomenal.
So it gets the silver, not the gold.
Get out. Get out right now.
Drops the mic.
Gypsy, see him out.
Yep. It's nice. It's been nice to have you on Call to Lore, Jerry.
Yeah, great. I'm sure the listeners will miss you.
Yeah.
The last show.
That's fine.
But it follows.
Just kidding. Get back here. Jerry, get back here.
I've returned.
But Silver Bullet's based off a Stephen King story, in which case you follow Marty and his sister.
Hang on. I have cast. Shit. Jane?
Yes, Jane.
Yes.
So you follow Marty and his sister Jane. Now, Marty is paralyzed. He's in a wheelchair. He can't move his legs. And his uncle, played by Gary Busey, Red.
Uncle Red.
Who is the star of this show, of this movie, I think. He's the standout actor. And
he is first billed. Yeah. He's the lead adult.
Sure. And Gary Busey is kind of a meme. Like, people like him, but they also like to talk about how weird he is. Gary Busey's skill as an actor sometimes gets forgotten. And in this movie, I think he shows what he's capable of. He plays this uncle down to the fucking hilt.
Yeah.
And like 95% of his lines were improvised.
Which is crazy.
Awesome. Because normally me and Eric, me and you are kind of against improvisation as a general rule.
I'm not a fan of that in movies, like, the Will Ferrell stuff and things like that. It can
torpedo a film.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of skill to make it good.
It does.
Like,
yes, it really does.
2016 Ghostbusters suffered heavily from improv.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, almost all of it was improv.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, yeah, that explains a lot, but not all of why it's complete shit with a side of corn. Because it was corny,
Yeah.
I got dad jokes.
Wow. Out.
Outstanding.
That was a really shitty dad joke.
Yeah.
but he really does sell it.
Yeah.
With his improv. There's a couple of scenes where you can tell it's improv not because it stands out like it's bad, but because you're like, boy, somebody wouldn't write that.
Yeah. Right. It's like who would think to
like one of the things he says, like when they tell him, when the kids come to him about the werewolf, he goes, jumped up, bald-headed Jesus Palomilla. And you're like, nobody's going to write that.
No screenwriters like, this is it. Actor's totally going to deliver this line and it's perfect.
And there's another scene where he's telling them to go to bed and Marty's like, well, what if I don't go to bed? And he just leans down and looks at him. Remember, this is like a 12-year-old kid in a wheelchair. He goes, well, I'm going to kick your ass.
Yes.
And you're just like, nah, they wouldn't have written it that way.
No.
But Gary really does sell this character. Yeah. I love him. And I'm going to shout out, there's a scene, I shouted it out to Jerry. There's a scene where the uncle and the mom have an argument about Marty.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to dive real deep into it. Because I want this to be a lure to get you to watch the movie.
You should watch this movie.
You should absolutely watch this movie.
It is a good movie.
Him and Gary, the uncle and the mom have an argument about Marty and about where he is in life because, he's this young kid in a wheelchair. And the argument is brief. It's really short as far as arguments in movies go. But there's a lot crammed into it. They both have really good points.
Yeah.
And they both have really big flaws in how they're looking at Marty and choosing to deal with the situations they find themselves in.
Yeah.
But it's so humanizing for both of them.
It was one of the most human-like arguments I've seen in film.
And it's funny that it's nestled in this 1984 like werewolf adventure film, because it's not a horror film.
Right. It is very like 80s kids on the adventure sort of vibe to it,
But the fact that they can pull off that kind of vibe with a werewolf movie and still make it good, or at least I think it's good. I think it's a phenomenal movie. They end up killing the werewolf, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to spoil who the werewolf is because
Right.
it's some fun.
Yeah.
But I would highly recommend Silver Bullet. I think it is my favorite werewolf movie. If I had to shout out another one, it would be Dog Soldiers, which is about a group of British soldiers that are trapped in a cabin fighting werewolves. It's another good one that people don't know about that I think is really good.
Have you seen that one, Jerry?
No, I haven't.
It's a good one. You should watch it.
I've not seen anything.
Oh, that's okay.
That's great because one of the things we absolutely love is showing people new stuff.
Yes.
Well, cool. I like to see new stuff.
Oh,
right.
well, then you have come to the right house, my friend.
Absolutely.
Bailey had never seen Austin Powers before, and I made her watch Austin Powers.
Yeah.
So
That's a solid one.
Okay. And so now we're going to go into some of the werewolf lore itself. We've gone through our timeline. We're going to dig into some of the more particulars. In particular, with this particular is how does one become a werewolf? It has clearly varied throughout the timelines.
yeah.
We've got a list that we're going to work our way through.
And they go from, I can see where that would do it to,
All right, then.
So we'll let you decide which ones are which as we go through. So starting out, Jerry was nice enough to put a list down, so I might make you do most of it.
Yeah, let's get the one out of the way.
Yeah.
There's the one that everybody knows. Get bitten or scratched by a werewolf and survive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's obviously like numero uno. It's
Yes.
the one that everybody
Number
knows.
one way. So it's treated more like a disease, a little bit more vampire-y.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What else we got? We have a pact with the devil. So this is kind of a,
This is
Make
where,
a deal.
yeah, this is where it starts getting into witchcraft.
Yep. Yeah. The which also comes with being cursed.
Yep.
By either a witch or a god.
Yes.
To become a wolf.
And it also ties in, it mixes heavily with the wearing of the pelt,
Oh yes.
which is another,
Mhm.
it's another cause, another way of becoming a werewolf we have, correct?
Mhm.
And so
yeah. and-
often you'll make a deal with the devil. And well, in the case of that one dude, he said he made a deal with the devil and presented him with,
Yeah, the devil gave him the girdle.
yeah,
A belt.
the belt. So they'll blend.
yeah. And apparently tied with that one is also mixing beer with blood and drinking that.
Yeah.
We got drinking water from a wolf's paw print or
Yeah.
werewolf's paw print.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That
You
was
just drink
one
the water from the step.
from the step it took and drink it.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
What else?
You could pee in a circle in a graveyard.
Yeah. No, there is a bit of a story to that one, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
It's like a Roman story.
A Roman story.
I think so.
Now, who had that one? Who knew that one? Who brought that up?
Not sure.
So, okay. So I think it had something to do with the two people in a graveyard, and one of them peed in a circle around himself in
Yes.
the graveyard and turned into a wolf.
Hmm.
I don't know if that was the first mention of it.
Boy, that's easy enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Turned into a wolf and
We'll
ran
give
off.
it a shot. We'll let you folks know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be cursed by a god or witch.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
Yep.
with the Zeus story.
Like dear Zeus. Being the seventh son of a seventh son in an unbroken line of boys. So it has to
Wow.
be sons.
Yeah.
Yep.
Straight sons.
No daughters.
You'd have to
in
be
the
the
mix.
14th son in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. And that one also has you can become a werewolf, but you could also become a healer depending on the culture, or like some sort of like magical person. There's different things that you could become. It's just one of them is werewolf.
Yeah.
Eating wolf flesh. The
Ah,
flesh of a wolf or a werewolf.
huh.
See, that's one that I'm like, I can see where
Yeah.
they would believe that.
Yeah.
Just fry it up and batter it.
Hmm.
little salt, little pepper, maybe some lemon.
Yeah. Sounds like a howling good meal.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Fuck.
We have the
The
flower.
lycanthropy flowers?
Lycanthropus
Lycanthropus flowers?
flower.
Which apparently they grow in the Balkans.
Oh. So we could travel to the Balkans and
I don't
pick some
want to.
flowers.
It's
Oh, okay.
Too
fine.
close to Bulgaria.
Yep. Oh no, we keep bringing it up. Eventually, Ty's going to manifest that.
Yeah, you're not. No.
We have a trip going to Bulgaria someday.
Oh.
Apparently,
Well, yeah, that's pretty cool.
No, it isn't. I don't want to go Bulgaria.
We have was it wearing the skin of a criminal?
Oh yeah,
An executed criminal wearing a belt out of the criminal skin.
That was an interesting one to me.
How would you find yourself in that position?
I guess just.
Well, I mean, so back in the day, they used to just hang them and leave them there, right? I mean,
I guess so. Yeah. Or they. I mean, I know they used to like pay the executioners in the boots of the executed people, so maybe they're a little extra cash if you skin them.
Yeah. We have being born on Christmas Eve.
Now that one I found just a passing reference to that I'm like, well, but Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus is a werewolf. Boy, that alters some shit.
Yep. That might change a couple of stories.
Is that canon? Not going to confession for 10 years.
I saw that one.
That was an interesting one. And that's another
10.
10 keeps coming 10. Up. We've noticed 10 years, 10 days, stuff like that.
Yeah, because with the saga of the Volsungs, they could only take the wolf skin off every 10 days.
10 days. Yep.
And what was the other one? It was 10 years. 10
years. Oh, the dog man in Michigan pops up in cycles of 10 years.
Every 10 years.
Yeah. Ending on years with years that end in 7. So it's 10 and 7 with werewolves that keeps popping up.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sex with a wolf or werewolf.
Yep.
You could do that and then
become a werewolf. You know, I think I saw a weird online comic once where that happened.
Was it doggy style?
I don't know, but I quickly realized it was kind of a furry thing. So I was like, I was looking for werewolves. I found furries.
Maybe furries are just werewolves.
They might be like a very subspecies of
like
human.
Werewolf light.
Werewolf light.
No. Listen, dressing up in a rug and buying something from Bad Dragon does not make you a werewolf.
Clearly. We found the ways you can try out. Don't try these. Don't try some of these.
Don't try some of these, like eating the unborn fetus.
Oh, yep. That was one. We hadn't mentioned that one, did we?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, eating don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yep.
Eating the brain of a wolf.
Yeah.
Is another one.
Yeah, like the mad cow disease thing.
Right.
Well, so you can eat other species' brains. You just can't eat the species of yourself.
Yeah. No human brains causes problems.
Prions, people. Look up prions.
Yeah.
Prions.
I always call them prions or prions.
Whatever.
It's either way.
Prions. It's a disease in the brain. It's no bueno.
No bueno. And then a lot of like cannibalism ties too seem to kind of lead to werewolfism or lycanthropy.
Yeah, it's another tie similar to the Wendigo.
Yeah. Yes.
Eating the flesh.
And then of course there's like kind of the real world equivalent, which is the
lycanthropy,
the mental condition of it's actually not just believing that you're an animal. It's not specific to wolves, I guess.
No, and we're seeing a lot of support for mental illness in certain areas of the internet. People claiming that they are things that they are not. Looking at you like, oh, I'm wolfkin or whatever. It's like, go fuck yourself.
Physical, I am a wolf.
Yeah,
Arf.
Yeah.
How-woo.
Like, yeah. If you're one of those people, it's like, oh, I'm wolf spirit or whatever. It's like, get help. I don't
Maybe they're just carrying on the wolf cult tradition. I'm sure
Heaven's Gate could probably say the same thing. Like, gee whiz.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a pretty I think they actually believe that Swift Runner, the guy that I covered in the Wendigo story, they believe that he had some version of that probably.
I see. Okay. So there's a plethora of ways that you can become a werewolf.
Yeah. And that's probably owed to the fact that in like the Middle Ages, man, information traveled really crookedly, shall we say.
Yeah.
Because it was almost all word of mouth.
Yeah. And then the printing press came about like in the 15th century or so. And
right.
They would make those pamphlets like spreading the news, even if, whatever the story was.
Yeah.
Other than, there wasn't ethics involved in the news stories.
There isn't now. All they are is continuing the legacy of the media now. So it's fine. They made up shit then. They make up shit now.
Funny how some things don't change, huh?
Yeah. Journalistic integrity. I don't believe it was ever actually a thing.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, I think if there's one thing that's been clear is that werewolves have an indelible place in the world and in the human psyche.
They are very, very deeply rooted in our psyche. It comes through in our stories. We've never stopped talking about them.
No.
Ever. Like, since the old days, it seems like older days. Yeah.
Since the oldest days, I would say.
The oldest story that we have written.
Eric, what is it about werewolves that's kept your attention through your entire life?
Well, first of all, I thought they were the coolest of the monsters, because they looked so much cooler. You had that. I've always had a thing for wolves and stuff like that. But I think what I really like about them is like the monster is a representation of the outsider usually.
Right. Sure.
It's the outside force, the scary thing that you can't quite see or can't quite understand. And the werewolf is one that can just blend right in among you now, these days.
Of course.
Yeah. Or in the older days when it was you just became a wolf, you became the outsider, once this inner part of you was released. And so like we all have our demons, as you might say, that animalistic part of us, the lizard brain and stuff like that. And when it comes out, we do tend to really hurt people the way that are closest to us. And it seems like, to me, we've recognized that for a very long time in our stories. And so I think retrospectively, that might be what is fascinating to me about them, because it's like, that inner beast, that inner like greed or hunger within us.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, anger, stuff like that. It's been very captivating and very powerful in the stories that I've come across.
Right.
So
what about you, Jared? What's gotten your attention about werewolves, either through this or through the course of your life?
It's just the believability that this, like, a human being could do this, like this savagery, unleash it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It's a werewolf, but a human being has this inside them all the time.
Yep.
They could always just
like that
this savagery.
It's like that guy, he claimed to do horror. I mean, it was under torture, of course, so you have to always factor that in.
Yeah.
But he claimed to do stuff that was well above and beyond what a werewolf would carry out.
Yeah, like specifically pulling out the baby's hearts and eating them,
Yeah, yes, but, things like that.
Right.
Dainty morsels. But yeah, it's just human beings always have this underlying savagery inside them, and they could always just unleash it at any time. And that's the warning of the werewolf is, suppress that, kind of control yourself, or you will hurt the people you love.
Yeah. Which is, it's exactly what I take from it. I mean, our audience might be shocked to find out, but I have a bit of an anger problem.
Nah.
I know. As hard as that might be to believe, I tend to be a little aggressive. So that's definitely what's drawn to me is I can empathize a little bit. I definitely I definitely get that feeling of having this creature inside you that breaks out every once in a while that you just can't control. And it's always good to know that it's so indelible into the person out into the human experience that it's made it since time immemorial. So it's not something that is unique to you, which usually would be a negative, but in this case, that's a good thing, right? Like it's something that human beings have struggled with since time forever, immemorial, basically.
Yeah.
And we've always sought ways to explain it, deal with it. And stories are how we make things less scary.
Yes. It's how we process things.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we've always looked for ways to deal with this kind of struggle that a lot of people, most people, I would argue, probably have really to one degree or another.
Oh, yeah. I would say I didn't quite have the courage to say it before, but it's like there is something very relatable to me, too, in the werewolves.
Sure.
That inner, just...
Everybody has something they push down.
Yes.
Because they know if they let it out of control, it will
harm people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I really think that is what, especially if you were to do the standard universal lineup of monsters, you were to look at all the different ones they had, that the werewolf really is the tragic one.
Yes. That is something that you had you had brought this up prior to the recording within the last couple of days about the werewolf is the one that can be the protagonist.
Yes.
In the story now.
Yeah. We see that in a lot of movies. Through most werewolf movies, the kind of standard formula is there are two werewolves. There is the werewolf at the beginning, which turns our main character. And to me, that werewolf represents the real monster, right? It is the unexplained creature that comes out of the night and injures this otherwise normal person until they aren't. And then we follow the tragedy of it as we watch this character who, if you follow the formula, I'm going to use the word properly, should be a relatable, likable character who then struggles to be with this thing that they're becoming.
Right. And I mean, man, if they're a protagonist in a werewolf, they're usually off by the end. So you're very
they very rarely make it out alive.
Being a tragedy. It is kind of that tragic story of what happens when we give into that, you know, and become the outsider of old. You know what I mean?
And while I do not believe there is anything wrong with using the werewolf as just a straight monster, like we see in Silver Bullet, where it is the antagonist.
Yeah.
Same with Dog Soldiers, right? They are the antagonist. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I love those movies. But I do think the uniqueness, kind of where the werewolf shines, is in that tragedy aspect that you don't get otherwise.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, Dog Soldiers is clever with it because one of the characters that you like is becoming a werewolf, and they know it from the very early onset of the movie. And he's like, I'm going to fight with you guys for as long as I can until I can't, then you're going to have to kill me. Yeah. So they do manage to keep it in there.
Right.
It loses a little less of its impact, of course, because it's not the character you're following through the whole thing, but it's still in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's, I think, kind of an important thing to have in stories with monsters, because again, that relatability that just kind of keeps coming up with it. But like, you know, in the older versions, they were I guess even as far back as you can go, the Cult of the Wolf, they were their own protagonists too, but they were putting themselves in a place where they could kind of explore the taboos that we have.
Yes.
That comes with that animal nature.
Yeah, it didn't seem to become a negative until later.
Yeah. Yeah. It was seen as something that couldn't coexist with society. They were, you know, in the cults, they were outside of society on the fringes and stuff. But
yeah.
I thought Jerry was getting ready to say something. I'm like, go ahead. He's like, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Let it out, Jerry. Let the beast out.
All right.
Ha-woo.
Ha-woo.
But
and how do we, well, one of the sad things about this that adds to the tragedy is it clearly is a story that we haven't figured out how to resolve. It usually does end with the death of our person who gives into the animalisticness or the the horrible taboos and stuff like that.
I think because the only way to win that game is to just not play. And I think that's why it's
a cautionary tale.
It's always a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
It's because
you're right.
If you let it go out of control, you can't, there's no taking it back sometimes.
Yeah.
And so it has to be a cautionary tale. Maybe not. Yeah. You know, I'm always up for the idea of a story where the protagonist becomes a werewolf and then is cured.
Yeah.
I would, if somebody does that, I would like there to be some dialogue about what it was like to be a werewolf. Now that person can think clearly. You can cop out by saying like, oh, I just remember stark pain and then I woke up the next day naked, which is what a lot of them do.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I understand why.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think there's some missed opportunity there where you could kind of, it's like, no, I didn't want to do this thing, but I did. And it felt good, even though I know it was wrong. You know, there's some
actually explore it, face it.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, I think, in there with some clever dialogue writing that I won't try to tackle.
Right. Yeah. But again, it also kind of makes sense because it's like when you give into something like this, it's often described as like losing yourself. I lost myself in this and stuff. So it's an easy way to represent that without maybe having the difficult conversation.
Yeah. I don't know. See, I guess I would take reference from like when you black out when you're drunk, right?
Yeah.
There's an extent to where you don't remember anything. But there's also a level right before that where you can remember stuff, but you're like, I was not in control
in any way. Anymore. Yeah.
So in that little gray area, you could take a paintbrush to it and fuzz the edges and brush it out and
color that out, pull it out and examine it.
And make it a bigger experience for the werewolf.
Yeah.
But I digress.
Yeah.
It's something that you could do.
But if you're ever faced with a werewolf, obviously the silver bullet is the prominent way to kill it.
However, I would caution that it needs to possibly have some holy elements to it.
Yeah.
And the holy elements might be more beneficial than the silver itself.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's even in Silver Bullet, a cross was melted down.
A cross
with
and,
a pendant.
and a pendant.
Yep.
I don't know if it was Mary. It might have been Michael.
Yeah,
Saint
and
Michael,
I can't remember either.
But it was one of those.
Yeah. So don't write off the holy element to it.
Yeah. When they were dealing with the trial ones, the way that they got rid of Peter Stoop,
Yeah.
they strapped him to a wheel,
Okay.
like a cartwheel,
Yeah.
and then they tore his flesh in like 10 places with hot pincers, and then they removed his arms and legs, and then they burned him. Yeah. No, they beheaded him and then they burned him.
Wow.
That's how they got rid of his.
That's how
his
they
curse.
decided to kill a werewolf.
Yes.
Whoa. Man, I wonder why the dismemberment and stuff before you burn. Why not just go right to burning?
But the reason they took off his arms and legs and then broke them afterwards with like a blunt axe was so that he couldn't come back from the dead.
So there's that return of the dead again.
Yeah. Now that is something that we haven't really touched on in this episode, and it hasn't become as prominent in the fiction and stuff these days. But it is something that does kind of exist. This undead element to him. The Wolfman, 1941. Its sequel. You see, spoiler alert. They killed him in the first one,
Of course.
In the sequel, he comes back because his grave was exposed to the light of a full moon, or his body was.
Ooh.
Is that Frankenstein meets the Wolfman?
I believe so. Yes, it was. Yes. And so I think that is that where the full moon began as far as werewolves
so
go?
I know in the original movie, they say that the autumn moon is full and bright.
Uh-huh.
So in the first one, there is reference to a full moon.
Right.
I'm not sure where that actually.
Yeah, where the full moon association started, because I wondered if it would reveal itself as we went through our timeline, but it hasn't really come up.
I think it sort of like peppers in here and there,
Yeah.
and then becomes like its own thing.
Yeah.
As it goes, it like evolved from little tidbits of.
And
Like,
this is
the moon was out.
Yeah.
Like, now the moon causes it.
Yes, solidified into that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
this is a good opportunity to just gently remind everybody that every episode that is a brand new episode is a part one.
Yes.
That should we find more information, we will absolutely do a second, third, fourth, however many we need to do.
Oh, yeah. No, I'd love to have an excuse to revisit Werewolves.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
because
there's several
Werewolves are
movies,
boss.
books, things that we can cover that can add.
Yeah.
We can even do like what we did with the Warhammer, where we lay out the timeline and then dive into very small aspects.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
a million ways and million and one ways to re-tackle this when we get more new information.
Yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else that we are burning to cover as far as Werewolves go? Any thoughts or feelings? Facts?
I think I've covered.
I think we got it.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to turn back into a man now. Then
I have fleas.
we'll get that treated, buddy.
Thanks, man.
I need help.
Advantage.
I'm surrounded by fucking weird people. I don't have fleas. I haven't turned into a wolf. I've had all my shots. I eat 3 square meals a day, like long walks on the beach. Just fucking kidding. I'm a redhead. I hate the beach. Like too much sun. Too much sun.
Can't have the sun.
Can't
No,
have it.
No sun.
Nope. But I think that's a good place to wrap up. Now's the time where we get our drop off in all of our watch playlists. Yes, we're paying attention to that, the analytics in YouTube, and you guys don't stay for this, you sons of bitches.
Yes,
that's
we know it, and it's fine.
That's fine. So that's been it for Cult of Lore for
Yes.
Werewolves this October season. Happy Halloween, guys.
Yes, seriously, happy Halloween. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And more importantly, we hope that you are enjoying your Halloween time.
Absolutely. Make sure
Yeah.
if trick or treat hasn't happened in your neighborhood yet, and it is happening, guys, get out there and do it. It is a tradition. Like in our neighborhood, it's kind of small.
Yeah.
That
yeah,
pisses me right off.
Yeah. We love the Halloween tradition.
We do.
Always find a reason to celebrate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Always find a reason to
And
celebrate.
especially
It's
like
nice.
everything's wide open, you know, every restriction has been lifted. So I really hope there's a big swell of Halloween this year. And God damn it, I want to see jack-o'-lanterns. Like last year, there were none.
Yeah.
Like we
Hardly any.
we have a tradition at our house. We did 13 jack-o'-lanterns last year. We're going to aim for an even 20 this year. So I'm going to be recording the Cult Tech Net people to help us with that.
Yeah.
If we get all 20 done, we might post a picture on our Cult Talk Net Facebook page.
Yeah.
So make sure you follow that to see how we do. We'll actually maybe we'll Facebook track the progress of all the jack-o'-lanterns or something along those lines. We'll do something like that.
Pretty cool. Jerry was nice enough for earlier in this month, the month of recording, not necessarily October, to bring us 4 little tiny pumpkins. They were cute.
They were gorgeous.
They were gorgeous.
Fuck.
Gorgeous.
Okay.
I love having Jerry on.
So with that, make sure you follow us on all of our stuff. Snapchat.
We don't have Snapchat.
Whatever. Why do I keep saying that? Instagram. I don't know what the differences in these fucking things are.
Promoting Snapchat. I'm gonna make you run it.
Tell us.
Oh yeah, that'll. Hey, Cult Talk Net, not our listeners. Do you want me to run a Cult Talk Net Snapchat?
Oh God.
Yeah, no. I think that would be. Jeez. But follow us on YouTube. We're on all the different podcast apps, right?
Yeah, tons of podcasting platforms.
Google.
Wherever
Spotify.
you're going to listen to podcasts, you're going to find us. We made sure.
Cult Talk Net across the board.
Yep. There's a link tree if you want to find like all of our other stuff because we're running other shows as well. There's Cult of Conspiracy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Make sure you follow. Yeah. That's the newest show on the lineup, Cult of Conspiracy.
So be sure to show Tyler and Bailey some love.
Absolutely.
Cult of Campbell
is going to be taking a hiatus after October for a little while.
Right.
Although we're gearing up for Cult of Kurt Russell. That's tingles my asshole in all the right places.
Yes. And a couple other things in the pipes that I don't think I'll mention just in case because they're still in the conception stage.
Yep. Some safety.
Yep.
But we've got a lot coming. We've gotten a lot of interactions over the past month.
Yes.
So
we love it. We've gotten some comments. It was great.
It was.
Yeah.
So if you guys are still here, let's clear up one thing really fast. We're still very new to this and we're working out our communication skills. I am Inquisitor Frost on YouTube. So if you see that response, that's me. Eric's going to be responding as Cult Talk Net. So that's him.
Yeah.
And on Facebook, if you message us on Facebook and it responds,
it could be
anybody, because it's just whoever is free to respond. If it's a specific Warhammer type question and is answered specifically, that's probably
you'll be getting us. Yeah. So there you go.
But we'll be working out all of this communication stuff.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely.
Yes.
Please bear with us. We are noobs of the highest caliber.
Indeed.
Get like a cork board.
Yeah. Carrier pigeon.
Carrier pigeon.
Carrier pigeon sounds good.
We're gonna.
There we go. Yeah.
So,
sounds cool.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I can't take this shit no more. I'm Ben.
I'm Eric.
And I'm covered in fleas.
Oh. Everybody enjoy your Culttober. Thank you so much for listening.
And happy Halloween, guys.
Happy Howl-o-ween.
Fuck!
Happy Samhain.